I call this meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to our board meeting today. We begin with the Section 10 Caledon OPP meeting. Welcome, Inspector Garrett. We will now refer to the OPP Caledon agenda. Roll call. Are there any declaration of conflict? First, we have roll call. All present except Mr. Howell sends his regrets. You want to say something, sir?
No. Yeah, when you have a chance. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any declaration of conflict? Saying none. The first item we will be having the approval of the minutes from the meeting held Friday, November 22nd, 2019. Can I have a mover? Mayor Brown, seconded by Mr. Atia. All in favor? Carried.
Yeah.
Mr.
Boughton.
Okay. No. I just want to. I'm getting the directions from two sides. 1 second. Thank you. Is there any question or comment for Inspector Garrett with respect to the fourth quarter report of 2019? Okay. Now, Mr. Bowden, you can go.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to make a comment about Inspector Garant and Constable Kate Pachenko. In our little community in Inglewood, I had an incident this week that caused me to reach out to Inspector Garant, who assigned Constable Pachenko that morning. The response time by the OPP, the professionalism of the constable, and the manner in which it was handled was absolutely outstanding. In Caledon, it's not often that you interact with the OPP other than, seeing them on the roads because we have a pretty good community. Inspector, outstanding work, and I should be very proud of the constable that was out. Her professionalism and follow-through was great, and I just wanted the record to reflect the appreciation from me and our community, so thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for the accolade. Thank you.
Okay, so if no further discussion, can I have a mover to receive the report? By Mayor Brown, seconded by Ms. Crombie. All in favor? Carried. This concludes the Section 10 Caledon OPP agenda. Thank you, Inspector Garrett, for taking the time to attend. Now we move on to the public board agenda, but before that, I just want to point out Mayor Patrick Brown will leave sooner from the meeting, like not throughout the meeting. He will stay. Mayor Brown, can you please?
Thank you to our chair. I'm off to kickstart a fundraiser today for homelessness at 10:30. So I'm going to have to miss this portion of the board. I've raised my comments earlier this morning for in our in-camera portion, but I wanted just to highlight one thing in public, and that's that we have Councillor Oana Santos here today with a motion on domestic violence. We've passed some motions around our council table in Brampton. I know the chief has done some incredible work around domestic violence, understanding the incredible call volume, the incredible pressure it puts on the police system. And so I just wanted, I wasn't going to be here for her presentation. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to highlight that I think the work that she's doing is very important and has my enthusiastic support, and I'd hope my colleagues on the board could support her request. She's trying to draw attention to an issue that certainly needs more focus.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. So we will now begin the Peel Police Services Board meeting of February 28th, 2020. A roll call, all members present except Mr. Howell and now Mayor Brown. Are there any declaration of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we will continue with the first item, but before we begin, I just wanted to offer some congratulatory remark. Some people may have seen earlier this week, Deputy Chief Ingrid Barclay Brown announced her retirement after 33 and a half years with Peel Regional Police. Deputy, I just want to congratulate you on your retirement and thank you for your years of service to the people of Peel Region. Best of luck and best wishes for your future.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the board for appointing me to the position of Deputy Chief. And so I appreciate that and the opportunity to serve the community. And work with the men and women of the Peel Regional Police. Thank you.
Thank you. The next we have, yeah, sorry, I was going to come to you. We have Mayor Crombie.
You were going to come to me, were you? I just really want to thank Deputy Ingrid Berkeley-Brown as well. It's been a pleasure working with you, but you have to understand the impact you've had on the community as well, and the role model you are, not only for young women aspiring to be police officers in policing, but for all young women in the community. So I want to thank you, and we meet each other at all the very significant events throughout Peel, and I want to thank you for your service. 33 years is a long time. So well-deserved retirement. Congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. Nando Nika, please.
If I could just add, not just the tremendous work you've done at the Vanguard for female policing all across this nation, but you did it with poise, grace, dignity every step of the way in an environment filled with, notwithstanding the normal challenges, a lot of men and a lot of testosterone. And yet you've always done it with dignity, grace, a real credit to this organization. And I know this isn't the end. Someone like you has so many other opportunities, and we commend you. So this is not the end of a career. This is a career that goes on. With other options, she'll have many, but she served us well, probably preeminent in your role for so many ways here in Peel, and I thank you for all you've done on behalf of the region of Peel. Thank you very much, and Godspeed. Good luck to you.
The next we have Mr. Atia.
I feel a need to congratulate you as well. I mean, it's been 1 year, but it's been a phenomenal relationship and experience working with you, and it's a huge loss to the service. But we're very proud that you get to move on and do different things and exciting things in your life. So thank you very much for all your service.
Thank you, Mr. Atia. So now we will move to item 1. The first item will be the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on Friday, January 24th, 2020. Can I have a mover? Moved by Nando Nika, seconded by Mr. Boughton. All in favor? Carried. The next item we have the board member questions announcements. We will now move to the board member question and/or any announcements. Does any member have any question or any announcements to make? Seeing none. The next item we have is deputations. We will now move into the deputations. A reminder that deputations will be limited to 5 minutes in length in accordance with the board's procedure policy. I will alert you when there is about a minute to go. 2.1 is our deputation today is from Miss Elizabeth Gallant and Miss Pam Main. Welcome. Please take your time.
Let me just move over a little bit. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Elizabeth Gallant. I am Bill Harrison's sister, sister-in-law to his wife Bridget, and aunt to their son Caleb Harrison. This is my second deputation to the Peel Police Services Board concerning the Peel Police death investigations into the Harrison family. For your reference, my first deputation to you was on June 22nd, 2018. The Harrison family lived at 3635 Pitch Pine Crescent in Mississauga. As you are aware, in that family home, my brother Bill was found dead in a locked bathroom in 2009. My sister-in-law Bridget was found dead at the bottom of the stairs in 2010. My nephew Caleb Harrison was found murdered in his bed in 2013. Caleb's death led to the reopening of Bill and Bridget's death investigations. It became clear that all 3 deaths were homicides. The Peel Police and the Coroner's Office have acknowledged there were significant failings in the death investigations of Bill and Bridget. 11 long and very, very painful years have passed, yet we still lack a full account on, number one, what happened, what went wrong. Number two, why did these death investigations fail our family? 3, could these deaths have been prevented? 4, what needs to be fixed so no other family must endure what we've been through? First, on January 29th, 2019, Peel Regional Police provided our family with a copy of the internal administrative review of the Harrison death investigations conducted by Inspector Joseph Paolini and Sergeant Michael McKenzie in 2018. We had sought meaningful engagement in the review process. Peel Police Services was unwilling to embark on an open, independent, and transparent process, and as such, we declined to participate. Family members found reviewing the report extremely distressing. It was of such poor quality. It left everyone wondering, had more questions than were answers. Secondly, on February 1st, 2019, we met with Interim Chief McCord and expressed our dismay about the internal review. He assured us that he was fully committed to addressing shortcomings in the Harrison death investigations. Third, you may be aware that on July 16th, 2018, the Office of the Independent Police Review Director, or OIPID, began its investigations into the conduct of Peel police officers in the Harrison death investigations. On August 18th, 2018, OIPID also began an investigation into the conduct of Chief Jennifer Evans while she was Deputy Chief and Chief during the time of the death investigations. 1.5 years later, we are still waiting for OIPID's investigative report to be released. We are deeply concerned about the time that has lapsed and the fact that we still have no answers. Our patience with this process has definitely been exhausting. Fourthly, in a letter to us dated December 3rd, 2019, the Chief, and I have the permission to call you Chief Nish, indicated that he is aware that some of the internal review recommendations have been implemented and that he is waiting for the OIPID report. He expressed his commitment to working with the family, and we appreciated that, and with the OIPID to implement any further action that Peel Regional Police can determine will assist them in future death investigations. On behalf of the extended Harrison families, I'm asking the Police Service Board and Chief Nish for a commitment to, number one, implementing the recommendations of the OIPID report on the Harrison death investigations in the near future. And number two, holding disciplinary hearings should the OIPID investigation findings reveal misconduct. And I'd just like to add a personal note that these two recommendations are actually my bucket list. I have nothing else I would like to see completed more by the time I pass than those two. I would feel greatly appreciative if we could just speed this process up and get something accomplished. I just feel that maybe I won't live long enough if we keep going at this pace. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here, as myself and some of the board members are new on the board, but obviously we know the situation, or we had read. I would like to ask Chief if he has some comment to make.
Thank you, Chair. And Ms. Gallant, thank you for your correspondence to me throughout the year, and I know we've exchanged communication. I think you need to know that the legacy piece of your family is one that we all want to honor, and we know that it's painful, one which perhaps will never really resolve from the standpoint of an emotional. However, we as an organization are fully committed with resolving anything outstanding, and particularly your two points that you spoke to us about, outcomes of the OA purity report. We too are eager to receive that. As you know, many efforts have been made to enhance, since, over the last 10, 11 years, our ability and capabilities in death investigations. However, you need to know with certainty any recommendations from the OI purity, our willingness to adopt them is foremost. And secondly, of course, as it pertains to any disciplinary matters, there's a commitment to see that through too. So I just hope that, from me as the new chief here, and I know you've met several of them, you understand that we as an organization want to have a way forward, and if that means adopting recommendations from the OIPRD, we certainly will be looking at them.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move to receive the deputation. Oh, sorry.
Ms. Gallant, if I could add as well, just as you're leaving, I just wanted to make the following point. Thank you very much for being here. It's the second time in 5 minutes I've had to commend somebody for their grace and dignity today, and I'm glad to be able to do so. You've been listened to. That's just the thought that I wanted to leave with you. Thank you very much.
Mayor Crombie?
I just wanted to say, from my perspective, from the residents of Mississauga, we all have watched what happened with great interest, and we're very, very sorry for the pain this has all caused you and the family, the extended Harrison family. I don't know why it, and by the way, we call it OIRPD ourselves, while the report has taken so long, but you can bet that if there are any recommendations that are valuable to implement, we will. You have our commitment. Thank you.
Okay, having said that, we will now move to receive the deputations. Moved by Mr. Nika, seconded by Mr. Attia. All in favor? Carried. Our second deputation today is from Brampton Regional Councillor Rowena Santos. Welcome, Councillor. Please proceed.
Thank you. It's amazing to be on this side of the table versus around here. The view is very different. Thank you, Chair Chatta, for actually encouraging me to come and delegate today on this incredibly important issue related to the increase in domestic violence that's happening in the region of Peel, and even more specifically within the city of Brampton. Last year, part of my efforts and my push for this is because on February 14th, 2019, 9-year-old Ria Rajkumar, who lived in the city of Brampton and in the city of Mississauga, was allegedly murdered by her father. And so this issue on domestic violence, gender-based violence, family violence has always been a concern of mine, but certainly when that happened 2 weeks ago last year, that had a huge impact. And the city of Brampton started to move in terms of increasing awareness. We had a vigil, we lifted a banner at City Hall showing all of the names of the victims who have died over the past 10 years due to gender-based violence, domestic violence. But it hasn't been enough. The issue still continues. And so the city of Brampton, we passed unanimously a motion to come up with a campaign, a public awareness and education campaign around domestic violence and domestic violence issues. That motion was then brought forward to the region of Peel, which was also passed unanimously. The United Nations, in their report related to domestic violence and how local jurisdictions can deal with it, they highlight that public awareness and education campaigns are the basic operating strategy that is effective in terms of addressing the issue. And so I'm here today to plead to the police board and to the police to help us, to join us. It is a collaborative approach when it comes to coming up with an effective awareness and education campaign on the issue. And in my preliminary research, we have found successes in campaign awareness campaigns related to domestic violence. And if we scroll down, so here are some of the statistics related to Brampton, and this is directly from Peel Regional Police in terms of the increase of volume and violations. Chief Nish also highlighted during the police budget deliberations that it's the most number of calls that you receive are domestic violence related. And if you scroll down, we can see on the document and on the information that the number of deaths related to domestic violence have actually doubled from 2018 to 2019. And so in Brampton, I believe it is mostly driven in Brampton because I believe the total number is 13. So the number associated in 2019 is actually 10. And in preliminary research, one jurisdiction, which is Scotland, shows high participation from the police specifically in their public awareness campaign related to domestic violence. Keeping in mind that in 2018, Scotland passed the Domestic Abuse Act, which actually fundamentally changed the definition of what constitutes domestic violence and violence to include psychological, emotional, etc. In terms of abuse. They also invested in new training for police officers. Their campaign, so in terms of statistics in Scotland, they get 59,000 domestic violence calls over the past year. And that is why they labeled their campaign as every 9 minutes. Every 9 minutes in Scotland, they receive a call related to domestic violence. If you compare that here to Peel Region with 12,000, we get a call every 40 to 43 minutes or so related to domestic violence. So I wanted to share, because we're right now in this campaign trying to come up with the right messaging and what has been effective messaging. I wanted to show you what Scotland Police did in their campaign over the years. So if we can just click on that first link, the YouTube link here. So this is, again, just to show you the tone of messaging that the police took in their campaign in Scotland.
This is a message to people who abuse their partners. This might sound familiar. You brought this on yourself. We've all heard that one before. You're worth nothing. Remember that one? You know it's your own fault, don't you? And this one's my favourite. You're going to get what's coming to you.
So the Police Scotland really took a sharp and shocking approach. The data and the research showed that, and it's similar to Peel because I've had conversations with organizations here in Peel Region as well. There's this perception or misperception that police don't do anything related to domestic violence calls, or they don't do enough. And so Scotland took a very sharp and shocking approach to say, no, enough is enough. The police are going to come for you if you're going to have any domestic violence in your home. The other thing that they found in Scotland was there is an increase in domestic violence calls around the holidays, around Christmas time, around New Year in particular. So if we could show the other video, 2014 festive domestic violence campaign, the police really took a leading role in terms of their sharp and shocking awareness as well.
We're making a list and checking it twice. We're going to find out who's violent, not nice. We'll look for you when you're sleeping, and we'll come when you're awake. We'll know when you've been bad, not good, so be good for goodness sake. Police Scotland does not tolerate domestic abuse. If you do it, we will be knocking on your door.
So again, a very sharp and shocking approach. I've looked at other jurisdictions in terms of messaging as well. So if we scroll down, I just wanted to show you Australia. So they took a softer approach. They took a language-based approach, that was more based on targeting the victims and sharing with them that language needs to change and how you talk about girls and how you talk about women needs to change. What they found about that approach was that it didn't necessarily move the needle in terms of impacting the number of domestic violence calls in Australia. So what they have said is that men play a very crucial role in the entire campaign, that it's kind of like a bystander approach, that don't necessarily target and try to educate the victims. You actually need to educate the perpetrators and the offenders themselves. One final thing that I wanted to share, because of our population in the region of Peel, is another campaign that messaging campaign they took in India, which again is bystander related. If we could just click on this link, because there might be some impact in using this messaging as well here in the region of Peel. So this is what they did in India. It's called the Ring the Bell campaign, again taking a bystander approach.
What do you think of yourself? Shut up! Shut up! गलती अब मैं करता हूँ. झूठ बोलने की आदत पड़ गई है तुमको. Just because I don't say anything. तुमको बस एक ही भाषा समझ में आएगी. एक ही. एक और बार अगर ऐसा हुआ ना तो मैं
एक फोन कर सकता हूँ? हेलो जी, हाँ, मैंने ही फोन किया था.
Bring domestic violence to a halt. Ring the bell.
So those are just some examples of effective tone and messaging that other jurisdictions around the world have used. We're currently working with our comms staff, our community safety staff, and we also have staff here at the region as well, as well as community organizations in Peel, to figure out what the right tone and messaging would be here in the region of Peel, and would really, really love to have the participation and support from Peel Police as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, for taking this much-needed initiative. Not only just your regular, as a councillor routine, but coming here and delegating. I'm sure I have a number of speakers they wants to acknowledge or comment. The first we have Member Crombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rowena, nice to see you. We missed you yesterday, and I know you're very active on the human sex trafficking file as well. The subcommittee was formed. Councillor Downey, combine those two. Joanna Downey is, I guess, the lead on that. So all, related as well. I want you to know that I had the opportunity to reach out to Ria Rajkumar's mother at the 1-year passing of her untimely death on February 14th. Unfortunately, it was her birthday. And she's slowly trying to put the pieces of her life together as well. So this is something I've given a lot of thought to as well, and I commend you. This is wonderful. So just on my colleague here and I are looking at your chart of domestic disturbances in Brampton. I'm sure the numbers in Mississauga are similar. This is Brampton, not Peel, right?
So, correct.
Yeah, but still, and when you look at, and as Al pointed out, if you look at the percentages, it'd be pretty low on the number of arrests versus the number of violations. And I guess why don't I ask the question, is it that it can't be verified, or the family member recants the story, or has a change of heart, or why are there not more arrests?
Chief?
Thank you, Chair. And I think looking at the numbers, we'll probably have to do a little bit more deep dive on it. But with certainty, the number of incidents, I think, reflects the number of times we're called and we step into a house. So, and then I'm just assuming that in some cases, it may not be as a result of an act of physical, intimate partner violence at that moment. And as a result, we register an incident.
Is that what violation means, Chief?
I think the term used is violation, but I think it would be probably our call response, right? An occurrence.
Because that's why I asked,
Incident,
because if it were, occurrence or incident, it's different from violation.
I'm interpreting that. Councillor Santos can help us with that. Is that the number of incidents from our CAD history?
Correct. That is my understanding from
Yeah.
the staff that sent it over.
So that the column that says violations is the number of incidents we respond to.
Okay.
And not to minimize the fact that many of them probably have a latent criminal element to it that just doesn't get exposed to us. But we do know with certainty that, it's one of the things, and I'm not comparing it to intimate partner violence to anything else, because this one deserves its own narrative. However, when we see an increased number of, for example, hate crime incidents, the affirming thing is that somebody's choosing to call, right? Which we try not to shy away from those numbers. The ability for us to prosecute and arrest is, the second half of that. And, it is, the reality is the numbers of incidents is very high, right? And I think we can't deny that. And we want more to be reported, and we too would welcome the ability to, effect arrests or stop the violence in any way we could probably do it.
Thank you,
certainly.
Chief. Thank you. So these campaigns against domestic violence and violence against women in general, for that matter, I mean, we're certainly very aware. I mean, I thought the videos were chilling. And we certainly all remember of the young woman on the bus in India that was brutally raped by the group of young men that were all taken to court for their actions and jailed. But I think that led to a huge outcry against violence against women as well. You mentioned some of the incidents that trigger domestic violence, including holidays. The other one is sports events that I've read about. If hockey, soccer teams win, lose, always a lot of alcohol involved and could lead to domestic violence as well. With respect to the media campaign, delighted to participate however we can. The sad reality is in Peel, we lack media. We have a few, Brampton Guardian, Mississauga News, The Pointer, etc., but not broadcast. It's tough to get our message across, and we could use all our channels. Police, we have bus billboards, bus shelters, on buses. The police have their own. We have the councillors have their own, but it's more limited to get some of these campaigns across. That I thought they were very effective, the ones you showed, particularly Scotland. I loved that one, but and we do have. Well, in Mississauga, at least I can't speak for Brampton, but Arma House and Interim Place, which do a great job in protecting women, their children, and families against domestic violence. So really want to thank you for this and taking it on. And for myself, and speak for the board, we're happy to help however we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie, for your comments. I think there's also an opportunity to utilize women's washrooms, men's washrooms in community centers, libraries. We've had initial conversations about involving restaurants and bars as well. And looking at top 10 employers in the city of Brampton to see if they could help us spread the word through their various facilities too, including even the GTAA, similar to the Human Trafficking Awareness Campaign, using the GTAA, the airport, to target the messaging within women's washrooms and men's washrooms.
At the end of the day, I can understand why the arrests are low, because I had a little bit exposure through friends, and these men, they sweet talk their wives, girlfriends, and say how much they're going to change and how much they love them, and this is the only incident, and then it repeats, and it's a cycle, and we see that in the human trafficking as well, with the men who are responsible for trafficking these women. I won't call them pimps. I don't know what I'd call them, criminals, monsters. But so thank you, and let us know how we'll help you.
Thank you very much. If you can see on the screen there, the Nashville and Tennessee, I didn't share this video, but the Mirror, it's a very highly impactful video that speaks exactly to what you just said in terms of the sweet talking.
Oh, could you play it?
Yeah,
I'd love
go
to see
ahead.
it,
Go
please.
ahead.
Sure.
Ready?
Yep.
And for the rest of my life, I don't want to be with anyone but you. What are you doing?
Until death do you part. I do.
Well, maybe I wouldn't have to worry about other guys looking at you if you didn't dress like a whore.
I just don't know what I would do if you were with anyone but me.
Where you been?
Hey, you don't want me about talking to you, do you hear me?
I didn't want to do that. You just don't listen.
Who's that?
Hey! You sure you're okay? I'm fine.
Who's gonna take you in but me? You will never see your son again. How about next time? I make sure you never leave the house again. Guess it's my lucky damn day. Look what I found under the bathroom sink.
Johnny, wait, just no, hold on!
YWCA hotline. How can I help you? Every day, 24,000 women are abused by someone they love. Just one phone call can help put a stop to it.
Yeah.
So I guess Chief, you wants to say something?
Yes, I think the first things first is that they're all remarkable, powerful messages, and I think we just want to thank you for delegating to us for sure. I think with certainty, you've got our commitment to be participating in the campaign, we've got Inspector Pogue here, who is, has partial responsibility of, intimate partner family violence. It's kind of one which all of our officers, communicators, dispatchers experience daily, to which you've highlighted with certainty. And for many years, we've been involved with a variety of different campaigns supporting, other entities from an opportunity to mitigate risk, provide victims additional outlets to seek help. But one thing that struck me is clearly the effort on tone and messaging on this, which, we would be happy to, be a part of. And I think if, not to commit Paul to, but if we could chat afterwards, we can clearly look at supporting through our corporate communications branch, a real strong effort for doing that. And as you know, we are looking to enhance some of our service delivery this coming year. Deputy Berkeley Brown, through one of her divisions, already piloting an intimate partner family violence unit, which we'd love to see, regionally, which not only helps us in the quality of our, interactions with victims, but also brings some greater consistency and awareness with partnerships and initiatives. So we'd happily welcome that. And really where we're headed is more collaborative approaches. So we just want to commend you for bringing that to us officially and to the board nonetheless. But we'll look forward to chatting some more on that and the outcome across both municipalities if possible. That's great.
Thank you so much, Chief, and thank you for all of the initiatives that are currently underway as well.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Second to Mayor Crombie, as she mentioned, these videos, the short videos, definitely brings out a good message, and it's a kind of eye-opener. I just want to point out the video from India. I grew up watching Boman Irani, the person who played that character from Bollywood. So, yes, but I don't know how I missed that, this one before. But again, thank you very much, as Chief said, for coming here and bringing the whole information to the board.
Thank you so much.
Now we will receive, now we'll move to receive the deputation. If no other discussion, by move by Ms. Crombie, second by Mr. Atty. All in favor? Carried. The third item we have is presentations from the Peel Regional Police. The presentation today is from Mr. Mark Figueredo, co-chair of Peel Regional Police Diversity and Inclusion Project Team, and Mr. Michael Bach, CEO of Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. Chief, would you like to introduce the presentation, please?
Sure. I think these are always one of these circumstances where you introduce the introducer, which is always a necessary effort, but I think this deserves a bit of a comment. As you know, the board historically has been very engaged with the outcome of the CCDI report, and I always equated it to, the CCDI report was like getting your health check. And then when you get your health check, you need a health plan to move forward. And part of doing that was bringing the CCDI back alongside of us. And then we have some exciting news at the end of this to introduce somebody we've acquired or hired as part of our team. But this is just a continued update, you know, to keep the board informed about our forward-moving trajectory. As you'll be able to see, it's a very positive one. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Rob Scherer, who, along with Mark, are co-chairing the internal activities, which is a broader team. So, Rob, I'll just turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair Cheta, and good morning to the board. We'd like to thank you for this opportunity to provide the board and the community an update on the progress that Peel Regional Police has made in our journey towards becoming best in class as an inclusive and culturally competent organization reflective of our vibrant and diverse community. I would like to first introduce Mr. Mark Figueredo, seated to my right, Peel Regional Police's Director of Materials Management, and Michael Bach, who many of you know, seated to my left, the CEO of the CCDI, the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion. We have another introduction, which we will save for a bit later. By way of background, as you know, CCDI conducted an equity audit of Peel Regional Police commencing in 2017. The results of this audit were released in March 2019, at which point then Acting Chief McCord commissioned CCDI to assist in developing a D&I strategy for PRP. Mark Figueredo and myself were assigned as co-chairs of the D&I committee and have since that time, with the ongoing support of Chief Duriapa, have worked collaboratively with CCDI. I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure working alongside the CCDI team. Michael and his team are consummate professionals who have brought a wealth of experience, ideas, and energy to this project. Our first order of business was to form the committee. We sought out a healthy cross-section of our organization, both sworn and civilian, from all walks of life, to assist in developing a meaningful D&I strategy. To ensure independence and objectivity, CCDI conducted the application process, and ultimately a committee of 17 individuals was selected from the pool of 114 applicants. We are very proud of the group selected, many of whom who are in the gallery today, and I ask that they stand and be recognized. Since its inception, CCDI has provided the committee with several sessions of onboarding training to help the team understand what is required to build an effective organizational D&I strategy. Other organizational efforts to improve inclusivity have included our recruiting and training initiatives. Our recruiting bureau has launched an aggressive recruiting initiative called Faces of Peel. According to recent census data, the region of Peel is the most diverse region in both Ontario and Canada. Racialized persons represent 22.3% of Canada's total population and 29.3% of Ontario. However, the region of Peel has a total population of 64.5% of racialized persons, which is the highest in the country. Faces of Peel is a 5-year plan that will seek to change the demographics of PRP officers by attracting the most qualified group of applicants of underrepresented groups. This initiative will include a robust outreach program, social media plan, and a unique advertising campaign. This strategy will change the demographics of uniform officers within Peel Regional Police to make the organization reflective of the community we serve by the year 2025. Training programs have included elements of D&I content for many years, with target audiences that range from our newest employees to our executive team. We have, however, recently bolstered our D&I training arsenal with the following. New recruits are given fair and impartial policing course, a course on knowing your diverse community, a 2-hour presentation on countering violent extremism, and each recruit class attends 2 different places of worship within the region. Additionally, newly promoted sergeants and staff sergeants are given a course on knowing your diverse community and are given a presentation on hate crime by our hate crime expert, Detective Ismail. Furthermore, our Intimate Violence Investigators course now includes a component on cultural issues and how their impact on intimate violence circumstances consistent with the presentation we just saw from Councillor Santos. Our Leadership in Police Organization course, which is given to all members of the organization, and our Field Training Officer course, given to officers that train new recruits, both include a segment on attribution theory and its resulting biases. I'll now turn the mic over to Mark.
Great, thanks, Rob. So earlier in the presentation, Rob talked about our D&I journey, and our next step in that journey was to hire an equity and inclusion specialist with the overall goal of putting an inclusive lens on all our systems and processes. Once again, we leaned on Michael and his CCDI team to help us in that process. We advertised the job posting through various channels, including CCDI's diversity and inclusion networks. We are very fortunate to receive 106 applicants for this position and had a very impressive pool of candidates. Working with CCDI, again, we shortlisted the pool of applicants and decided on a group of 5 candidates that we were going to interview. A key component of that interview was a 15-minute presentation each candidate had to provide on their interpretation of PRP's equity audit that was conducted in 2017. Not only did that presentation allow us to gauge their understanding of the audit, but also to gauge their communication skills. While all 5 candidates did a very good job, one particular candidate stood out clearly from the rest as someone that we thought could help fulfill our goal of becoming best in class as an inclusive organization. Today, we're proud to introduce you to Saleha Khan, the first diversity and inclusion manager in Peel Regional Police history. A little background on Saleha. She moved to Canada in 2001, and her first impression of Canadian policing was with Peel Regional Police post 9/11. Her interactions with our police officers led her to think that they were very forward-thinking and very clear on their desire to keep the community safe. After that, Saleha never shied away from actively seeking to work with and alongside law enforcement agencies across Ontario. In fact, her career path took her from working at hate crime prevention public programs at Hamilton Police to then supporting law enforcement agencies all across Ontario as she worked for 11 years in a role as an equity and inclusion instructor at the Ontario Police College. Saleha's most recent employment with the City of London has helped her develop a strong understanding of working in a municipal government. As she told me on her first day here, she's thrilled to be working with Peel Regional Police and feels like she is back home again. Saleha commenced deployment with PRP just this past Monday, and to say that she hit the ground running would be an understatement. She attended our D&I meeting on Wednesday, as we have been focused on developing our diversity inclusion strategy. She had the opportunity to contribute her ideas, but also to meet many members of the organization. Now, before I ask Saleha to say a few words, maybe I could ask Michael from CCDI to perhaps give us his comments on what our journey has been like to date.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you for having me. We've been working with Peel Regional Police and the Services Board now for several years. I have to say that I have been extremely impressed with the commitment that Peel Police has made to accepting the findings of our report and to implementing the change. I've been so impressed that I actually have done some of this work myself. I don't normally work directly with clients, but we work with hundreds of employers across the country doing these sorts of assessments, and I can say that I won't tell you who, but several of them end up on shelves collecting dust. But I'm really pleased to see Peel Police taking this seriously. The process of hiring Saleha was a challenging one. We received a lot of applicants and a lot of really qualified ones. I just want to say and give credit to Rob and Mark, as well as Detective Sergeant Joy Edwards, who's in the gallery today, who participated in the interviews. This was a very challenging process. We saw 5 exceptional candidates, all of whom could have done this job. And we were very fortunate to go through the process and came up with Saleha as our our candidate. It's been a pleasure working with Peel Police, and I look forward to continuing that relationship going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Sally, do you want to say a few words?
Just wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity. Definitely having to come and work with Peel was something that I'm not going to say that I always dreamed of, because this was not something that you could probably think in those terms. But definitely when the job came up, it was not only an opportunity, but for me a dream come true. And the reason I say that is because as I worked through OPC, I had seen the progressive nature of lots of initiatives and efforts that Peel Regional Police Service had already conducted, had already delved in, and I just used to think that they hadn't been talked about enough. So I'm hoping that this will be a great opportunity for us to really shine through more. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and the board, for allowing us to come speak to you today.
Thank you. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome as well to Ms. Khan. We have Member Crombie.
Sorry, Chair. So this is very exciting for me. I think I moved the motion to have the audit to begin with, so I was disappointed to see the results. But, we have the right attitude here. And it's always, as Chief said, you take that pulse and then you get a plan and you move forward. And we knew that we had some work to do, and we're doing it. So I'm so pleased, and welcome, Saleha. Look forward to working with you. At Mississauga, we have a diversity and inclusion committee, advisory committee. They're a committee that is advisory to council, and we started that up when I became mayor because, to be honest, our council was not very reflective of our community either. So we wanted to be sure that we had a lens to the community, as you called it, looking through that diversity lens. So this is very good news. I'm very happy, and even the fact that we pulled the 17-member diversity team together is very good news. You see, we're just moving ahead so quickly. It was interesting on your stat on 64% racialized people in Peel. Excuse me. I like to say we're 56% born abroad, but this is even broader because it's completely racialized. So it's a good stat to have. And I'm delighted at our goal at being reflective of our community by 2025. So let's use that inclusivity lens, and great initiative, and congratulations, and thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Crombie. You have anybody else? Sorry, Mr. Atia.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for continuing to work with us on the report. And welcome, Saleha. I've heard a lot about you and the great work that you've done in different places, so we're looking forward to bringing that to our police service. Could you be kind enough to maybe one of you to just remind us what the top recommendations were in the report? And then as well, a little bit, what are the next steps now that we have Saleha, we're doing strategy? What does it look like next?
You're going to challenge my memory. One of the key recommendations was to develop a strategy, and that's work that we have actually been working with the committee. We helped to strike the committee and then work with them through the strategy. That strategy will be presented to leadership, I believe, in the next few weeks. So we've gone through the iterative process. And to be honest, I haven't seen the strategy to know what the recommendations that boiled to the surface are. But I believe if there was something about representation of officers, training, and now I'm totally blanking on the other things. Yeah, Mark, why don't you?
This strategy has been a multi-phase approach. We're on our third meeting now, where we've now established some overall strategic goals that'll encompass the organization's commitment, as well as leadership's commitment, as well as the employees' commitment to diversity and inclusion. We're now finalizing the objectives that come within each one of those goals, and they're going to be inclusive of everything from maybe unintended barriers to promotions or training or things like that, involving employee resource groups where we can draw people in to get specific feedback from their perspective. But we're not there yet in terms of developing the strategy. With the timing, it couldn't be any more perfect with Saleha joining our team now. But once that strategy is complete, we will definitely share it with the board of senior management. And I believe it's going to be a very encompassing document that'll give us a good work plan for our committee work. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And I just, final comment, I mean, just in attending our graduate program where with the new grads, you can clearly see the diversity. I'm not sure if that's an outcome of the work. I like to believe it's an outcome of the early stages of your work, so I'm very excited to see when you really get into it how we're going to see that, you know, bubble up into the service. So thank you.
Okay, just one thing, these speaking request numbers, as I have, is different than what's appearing on it. Yeah, that'll be good. Thank you, Mr. Yanika. Chief, you would like to comment on this?
Sure, thank you, and thank you for the presentation and to the committee that's here. I just wanted to comment that Saleha and I have known each other probably for over 15 years now in the policing community. She and I have done some work previously at the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police on equity, diversity, inclusion as committee members. I have to say that the process that we have run to identify somebody has really met its test, because I think we have got probably one of the foremost individuals that not only understands our sector and the challenges that it presents, but has a real collaborative approach to moving forward. So Saleha, congratulations, and happy to have you here. I think the one thing for the board to understand is that, and I think both Rob and Mark, the chairs and the team, one thing we've always said is, the strategy is one thing, but then we have to execute it. And, we're committed to, a multi-year process. Really, what we're impacting is the org culture and how we approach things. And we want it to be authentic, and not to Michael's comment about it sitting on a shelf is not the intent. So, I think you have our commitment as an organization to continue to update the board on the road travel, but I think having Saleha there to shepherd and lead those elements of it with the chairs and the rest of the network really shows that it's not just a single person in the corner of the organization that has this responsibility. We've all agreed that we have a responsibility to see this through. So congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Now we will move to receive the presentation. May I have a mover by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Ms. Crombie. All in favor? Carried. The next item we have, we will now move on to the new business. Item number 4, 2019 External Funding Assistance, Public Police Programs. Chief, would you or someone on your team would like to speak to this item?
Sure, I'll probably hand it over to Acting Staff Super Symington or Bev. But I just wanted to comment that we've seen a lot of announcements from a strong support from the province to provide us funding in different streams. Some of the messaging requires us to unpack how that actually looks. This report really accounts to, we saw numbers of 20.5 million over a period of time. But the complexities of where funding streams go into the organization is quite diverse. They're not only contemporary issues, but as fundamental as court security for, as we know, we've one of the largest and busiest courthouses in Canada. So I think with that, if there are questions pertaining to the nuances of the single grant funding, the cost recovery on secondments, I'll turn it to staff to answer.
Thanks, Chief. And I'm just going to pass on to Carrie Lynn, just because she is the subject matter expert and she's in the room here as far as the grant funding goes.
Yes, good morning. So this is an annual report that we put forward to the board. We're reporting on funding that we receive that's greater than $25,000. So in 2019, we received nearly $17.8 million, and $15.4 million of that was in relation to grants, and $2.4 was in relation to our external secondments. So if there were any questions.
Is there any question or comment from the board members?
I would move receipt of the report.
Okay.
No, I have a question. Sorry.
Crombie?
I always have questions. Just remind me, we received less total funding in grant money than we did the previous year, correct?
That is correct. I think we, at budget time, had projected roughly 2 million,
2 million.
short from last year that we were dependent on. Carrie Lynn could probably update the most recent number.
Yes, that's correct. So we did receive last funding when they repurposed our previous CPP and 1,000 officer program funding into the new CSP grant. However, we did just receive notification, I'm trying to think if it's actually officially out there yet, but that we will be getting a bit more money from the province. And in regards to our court security prisoner transportation grant, that was cut.
That was cut quite dramatically,
Yes,
as I recall.
and for 2020, we did make up a little bit more of that money, so we were cut about 700,000. We're getting back about an extra 300,000 this year
Okay.
for that.
I realize the new grant money hadn't been announced, but I was going to ask, there will be an opportunity to make some of it up, or other opportunities to apply for more granting?
Yes.
Okay. We'll keep track of that closely, because it has been, the downloading to the cities, the municipalities, the regions has been a big problem. Certainly, we've seen we put higher property taxes this year as a result of the downloading. So I just, and it did impact our budget this year at budget time, that the cuts to the grant program did impact the budget, and hence the trickle-down effect even to the Peel Region budget. So it's been was a bad year for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I think we're optimistic that each grant cycle represents a new opportunity to refresh our needs. And I'd like to acknowledge GT Sahota here from the ministry here. She's here. And, we've got a good relationship with them, looking at new opportunities. And clearly this year we will, some of the cycles are up for reapplication. So we will, again, look to ensure that we maximize on them.
Okay, if no further discussion or question, looking for a mover to receive this report by Mr. Unica and seconded by Member Atia. All in favor? Carried. The next we have is item number 5, collection of identifying information in certain circumstances annual report. Chief, would you or someone on your team like to speak to this item?
Sure. I think Deputy Andrews can speak to it. As you know, this is a required report to the board, and I'll just turn it over to Mark for any clarity.
Good morning. This is an annual report that falls from legislation that was enacted in 2017. This is our second year of reporting. The number of collected cases of identification doubled from 2 to 4, and all the collections were compliant with legislation. I've got Superintendent Wahid Butt here and Acting Inspector Ray Linton to speak to any details if we want to drill down on those.
Is there any question or comment? Seeing none, looking for a mover to move this report. By Member Unica, seconded by Member Boughton. All in favor? Carried. Item number 6, we have community event paid duties board policy review. Chief, would you or someone on your team would like to speak on this item?
Sure. I'll just open it up before I pass it on to staff. The chair and Mr. Serpe and I have spoken a few times, and we want to continue to be transparent to our partners, the municipalities, the community, on how we proctor and deploy paid duties. We know for those who deal with paid duties, they understand the nuances. For the public, it might be confusing and a lot of misperceptions. But if you look back at the history of what we've done, is we've made significant effort in policy to make sure that it's equitable for the municipalities. This most recent review, as requested by the region, the staff have done a pretty fulsome scan of other police agencies right across the GTA and the province. We are very consistent in how the language is and how it's deployed. There are always going to be nuances that require flexibility. I think one of the things you'll see is that we're quite confident that the policy as it is should remain the same. However, we've spent time articulating the space that allows us to do what's right given public safety. And I think the nuance would be any large community public event if we had, whatever reason, deployed a certain finite amount of paid duty officers, but became aware of a public safety risk or threat, we do require the flexibility to add day-to-day officers. Although that rarely happens, we have a really strong, fulsome incident command. That would be the only thing, and I could probably turn it over to staff and Carolyn if I haven't knocked that one out of the park. But that's the element that's been added to the policy, and I think just the details of how it's been applied historically, Graham, Bev, or Carolyn.
So I think you knocked it out of the park, Chief, but yes. I mean, it's spelled out in the report. We went through the process previously in the review, obviously very transparent with the PSB and with the regional council and the cities being involved in what's happened with the reallocation of funding. And I think the main thrust of this report is just clarifying what you stated, Chief, that we're certainly going to reserve the right to make sure that we're doing our duties as a police service to protect the public and ensure that things are done peacefully where the circumstances dictate that we should be involved with our regular assigned officers.
And just to follow up, Chair, I think the next step, as highlighted in the report, is for us to come to regional council to communicate that. So we will, subject to the approval of the board, we'll schedule that with council and discuss who that might be in presenting that.
We have Mayor Crombie wants to speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So certainly from our perspective, if I can wear my municipal hat and regional hat for a moment, is that we want to ensure public safety, and I know that's where you participate as a service to the community. So let's call it Canada Day and anything else that's a large public gathering. However, we also see a large number of community and cultural and religious events, and I guess that's when our councils need to step forward and provide that funding for them, because obviously when they're providing a cultural event, they have limited budgets, but yet large crowds often attend. And I'm thinking of, certainly in Niagara Kirton up in Malton, the big parade, cultural religious parades that occur. So certainly they draw great numbers, but don't really have the budget for the policing. So that's when we have to go back to our municipalities in our region and look, and then the other ones as well, including, I think, the Bread and Honey Festival. I don't know if you do any of the other parades and events and venues, and how we decide which is in the public interest and is a public event versus those cultural religious kinds of events, if you want to speak to that.
So thank you. I think we can, I might lean on Mark or Graham for some of the individual events, but this is also brought to our attention, especially where events, like, for example, the parades cross geographic borders into other, and so we're always conscious of our policy decisions and the flexibility in there, but also not to be too disparate from neighboring jurisdictions. So, and I think, we're quite satisfied as much as we can that this policy allows us that ability to be able to support where we can support and be part of the planning phase so we can anticipate what resources are. And as you know, if we have to augment, it comes from frontline resources, which already we know are stretched, to say the least. So, Mark, I think maybe do you want to speak to that?
Just to sort of highlight the sort of situations which can flow from this, last year's Raptors viewing parties that everyone was part
Jurassic Park West, is
Jurassic
that what we're talking
Park
about?
West and Jurassic
Those were my
Park
parties.
North.
We actually had more people than in the Scotiabank place.
But those were unanticipated challenges that we faced, and we needed that flexibility. And the future will hold many of those types of challenges. And this policy speaks to our ability to be flexible and respond, as the Chief said, to those occasions.
Very good. Chief's quite right. When we encounter some of these groups, that group in particular, the parade starts in Mississauga, ends in Toronto, and we certainly hear all about what the Toronto policies are on the other side, and why don't we mirror them is sort of the point. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair. I just think, without leaving that hanging, we're quite alive. Mark and I have spent time at the Gurdwara, and well in advance, we're engaged on better line of sight to those issues.
Great, thank you.
Okay, if no further questions or comment, I'd like to receive the recommendation report. May I have a mover? By Member Atia, seconded by Member Boughton. All in favor? Carried. In concluding remarks, this concludes the public portion of the Peel Police Services Board. I would like to thank everyone, and thanks to GD Sahora from the Ministry for taking time and being here with us. Thank you. We will adjourn for a few minutes to clear the room and then move in camera. Thank you all for attending this public portion of this Peel Police Services Board's meeting.